This is The Bandwagon, a podcast about baseball and East Coast bias. I'm afraid that that's actually becoming increasingly true and not just specific to this episode. I'm Hannah Kaiser, a baseball writer at Yahoo Sports, joined as always by Zach Kreiser, another East Coast-based baseball writer at Yahoo Sports. Wow, we're really covering the extremely narrow market of Brooklyn and Manhattan. Two boroughs that do not have baseball teams.
Two boroughs that do not have baseball teams. We need a Staten Island correspondent to complete the New York trifecta.
Exactly. I went to a Yankees game. I went to a lot of Yankees games recently and was quizzing my husband unnecessarily on what he thought would be different if the Yankees played in each other possible borough. A question that cannot be answered. I was like, what would be different if they played in Manhattan? What would be different if they played in Brooklyn? What would be different if they played in Staten Island? And he was not having as much fun as I was. Okay, that's not what we're talking about today. Today, we're going to talk about non-shortstops playing shortstops. We're going to talk about the AL East, hence the intro. And we're going to talk about the A's potential move to Las Vegas. And it's continuing to take very tiny little incremental bureaucratic steps forward. And then I'm going to tell you about a pitcher that I'm excited to see. And then we're going to wrap up. But first, before we do that, we're going to talk about, more AL East content. Okay. We have to talk about the Judge side-eye mini scandal that happened Monday night. Monday night? Yes.
Yep, last night. This happened when we're recording this happened like 15 hours ago, and it feels like it has already been occurring for a month. But
does it actually? Does it? Because I kind of feel like we haven't gotten too far. I feel like the discourse, as it were, got really hung up in the very early stages of this. Okay, let's set the scene. Yesterday, the Yankees were playing the Blue Jays. They were in Toronto. That's going to be relevant. I was at home flipping through all the baseball, as I do on a Monday night, and came across the Blue Jays broadcast, that will also be relevant, of the Yankees versus Blue Jays game. Got there just in time to see Aaron Judge bat. He had already hit one home run. The Yankees were up by a whole bunch. And then he, as we tuned in, got there just in time for the Blue Jays broadcast to say, wait a minute, what was that? And then they showed a replay of him definitely, we'll get to the seemingly part. They showed a replay of him in slow motion. The pitch is coming in and he flicks his eyes ever so slightly to the side and then back at the pitch.
The pitch is not coming in yet. He does this as the pitcher has the ball, right?
As the pitcher, but he's standing, it's not like he's just like looking around the ballpark. He's standing in his batting stance. He's ready to swing the bat and he looks at the side. So they show a replay of that from earlier in the at-bat, and then, or maybe they say that happened earlier in the bat, and then he hits a home run. Very exciting. He hit a huge home run. People were thrilled. Yankees fans, that is, not at the ballpark in Toronto. And they were like, oh, I think he did it on that one too. And then they showed the slow motion replay of him standing in the batting stance. The pitcher comes set. Aaron Judge very obviously looks somewhere other than the pitcher. We don't know where. And then he swings and he hits a home run. So, real quick, to me, the most interesting part of that is that it happened, that they had already noticed it earlier in the at-bat. We should say this is the Blue Jays broadcasters who had already noticed it earlier in that specific at-bat. I don't think that they saw it in his earlier at-bat, earlier in the game or in any of the other at-bats. But it wasn't like they were salty about him hitting a home run and then went back to the tape and noticed this. They were discussing it and then he hit a home run and then they said, oh, interesting. He did it on that pitch as well. So I made the mistake of tweeting out a GIF of this and immediately was inundated and continued to be inundated with people debating whether the Yankees are cheaters, whether the Yankees have always been cheaters, whether the Yankees' lack of punishment for their in perpetuity of cheating is a result of the preferential treatment given to them by Major League Baseball. We'll sum up what actually happened and then we can get into discussing it. After the game, obviously this got brought up. John Schneider, the Blue Jays manager, said he was obviously looking in that direction for a reason. And I think we'll dive into it a little bit more tonight and tomorrow and just make sure we're doing everything that we can to not make ourselves susceptible to tendencies or location or pitches or anything like that. Okay. Aaron Judge was asked about it. He initially was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And then he explained that it was because Aaron Boone, the manager, had been thrown out earlier in that at-bat for arguing balls and strikes. And Judge said that he was looking over at his dugout because he still heard the guys, his teammates, chirping at the umpire. And he said, which I didn't really like in that situation where it's a 6-0 game. And I know Booney got tossed. I was trying to save Booney by calling a timeout. And I was trying to see who was chirping in the dugout. I don't buy that explanation at all, but that doesn't mean I think Aaron Judge is cheating. Okay, you go, and then I'll talk.
Okay, so there are two possible, if you're wondering what about looking to the side constitutes cheating or potential cheating, here are the two options, neither of which in this particular case is really cheating. So one is he's looking at the dugout because someone in the dugout has figured out a tell on the Blue Jays pitcher, which are sometimes more visible from the side. So, Carlos Beltran, who was later famous for less savory sign stealing, was famous for being able to pick up tells on a pitcher. If he moved his glove a certain way, you knew a curveball was coming, that sort of thing. Sometimes those are easier to spot from the dugout. So theoretically, Aaron Judge could look at the dugout. Someone could have picked up the pitcher moved this way. It's going to be a fastball, whatever. That's one explanation. The other explanation is that he's doing what's called peeking, which is just he's looking to see where the catcher is. Mm-hmm. And that, pretty much always will give you some hint of where the pitch is supposed to go. Neither of those things is illegal. It's maybe an unwritten rules violation to peek. Guys don't love when batters look back at the catcher, but there's not actually a rule against that. It's just sort of a, baseball player code thing. The sign stealing or the tipping pitches type situation, again, it's only illegal if they're using some sort of electronic device to either, figure out the tell or to relay it to Judge or in any part of that. And, you definitely cannot get to there from his eyes moving. So all of this is just something, he was looking at something and that's a little abnormal, but jumping to cheating, or at least to illegal cheating, is not really a smart leap to make. But it's the Yankees and Aaron Judge, so everyone made it anyway.
Yeah. So by virtue of unfortunately wading into this conversation by tweeting about it, I feel like I have some insight into the horrible depths of it every time I click over to my notifications tab on Twitter. And there are a couple of things that I want to sort of address or dispel. People's reactions, Yankees fans' reactions, tended to be, why are you accusing him of cheating? They were using PitchCom, so there is no sign to be stealing. Correct. I mean, if they were somehow stealing the PitchCom signs, that would probably be illegal. But yes, it is. And then non-Yankees fans were like, they're stealing signs. Just as for the 2017 Astros, the Yankees are just as bad. So, okay, a couple of things about that. One, this is why it is so interesting. Because they were using PitchCom, and so he was not they were not stealing signs. It's not even if there was a runner on second, they couldn't have been stealing signs because they were using PitchCom, and that makes this worth pointing out. My frustration with this, which I'm gonna take it several layers down in the brain panel meme, the galaxy brain meme. I think this is really interesting. I think the broadcasters thought it was really interesting. I think it's interesting because the game within a game of baseball strategy is very interesting. The game within the game of every at-bat is very interesting. And we very rarely get a truly authentic sort of peek behind the curtains. I wish that we could talk about this and attempt to decipher it with enjoyment, and not just territorialism and anger and accusation. I think this is a little bit of a chicken and an egg situation. So we've now said this a couple times, but just to be absolutely clear, non-electronic deciphering of tells and even stealing signs. But again, that wasn't happening because they were using PitchCom. Non-electronic deciphering of tells is completely legal. It is a major part of the game throughout history, and it is an interesting part of the game that has become really difficult to talk about because of the strong reaction that anything similar to the Astros sign stealing scandal elicits. Because of this, players never acknowledge it. Or actually, maybe I shouldn't say because of this, but perhaps because of the reaction and the level of fervor it inspires in fans, players never acknowledge it. This came up in the postseason last year. It looked like the Phillies had noticed something. They were seen on video sort of talking to each other in the dugout, and then after the game, completely denied it. Same thing, Aaron Judge completely denies that there's any sort of tell. That explanation is not convincing the Blue Jays not to look into it further. John Schneider, the manager, again, specifically mentioned, we're going to look into this, see if there's anything going on. I wish that what I want is for one team or one player who has been, quote unquote, accused of this, something on the broadcast, it looks like maybe they picked up a tell. I want them to come out and just say, like, yes, we picked up some version of a tell. That is not illegal. And you are free to, whatever, make the little overlay videos, the side-by-sides, the media, have at it with your discourse. Because again, the pitching team, the defending team in that situation, they're going to look into it. They are not just going to look at Aaron Judge's explanation that he was making sure no one in his dugout was still chirping and be like, well, okay, nothing to see here. I guess we shouldn't take a look and see if there's any tell. So it's already happening within the game that maybe they picked up on a tell and now the other team is concerned about a tell and they're going to check and see if there is a tell and that pitcher is going to make sure he's not tipping next time they face each other. And I wish that we could have a conversation about that in the media, in public, that was not so speculative and not so fraught in its speculation. Okay, that's my soapbox.
Yeah, I think the obvious reason, I don't think the reason players don't acknowledge this has anything to do with fans or the scandal. I think it's because they think that if they deny it, then the other team won't be able to look into their tell as easily. It's just purely competitive. I think that's probably not really helping anything. I think teams know how to look at this stuff, but they don't want to talk about having figured out a tip on a pitcher because they don't want the pitcher to fix the tip. That's a lot of it. But yes, it does spiral quickly with implications that don't need to be made. And at this particular, non-scandal has, I just want to read a tweet from Buster Olney because it has a new phrase that I would like to talk about. This is Buster Olney tweeted this Tuesday morning. There is an assumption on the Jays side that their pitchers/catcher were betraying the identity of the forthcoming pitches last night. I mean, this is some real spy novel MI6 stuff, and I just think that is a delightful phrase that I know Buster Olney knows the phrase tipping pitches, so I don't know why he chose to do this language, but I support it.
I hope that the pitcher, who I believe was Jay Jackson, went home, looked in the mirror, and was like, betrayal! Myself to myself. Maybe Buster Olney didn't use tipping pitches because tipping pitches has already become so fraught with cheating implications and all of that. I don't know. Again, this is just a very whiny plea, but this is an interesting part of the game, and I wish we could actually talk about it. Everyone, even on the Blue Jays broadcast, had to be so careful to be like, now we're not implying anything. Yes, you are. You're implying that they're tipping their pitches, and the Yankees have picked up on it, and that's, again, completely fine. But we all have to be like, don't say that I accused 2022 AL MVP Aaron Judge of cheating. You didn't. You just think that maybe the Yankees have noticed a tell, and that they are employing that to great effect. Okay, that's the end of that. Wilson Contreras is catching again. It went great. I'm afraid that everything the Cardinals did is paying off exactly the way they wanted it, and we're all going to look silly for doubting them. Let's not spend any more time on it. All right. The A's, they might again be moving to Vegas. They, I thought, had a binding deal to buy land in Vegas. That was the language that was used. Apparently not that binding, because now they have a deal to buy different land in Vegas, which makes people more confident that they're moving to Las Vegas, I think.
I don't, it doesn't make me more confident. It makes me more confident that they are having significant difficulties convincing the powers that be to give them public funding for their potential move to Vegas. And so the latest site is attached to a casino property, the Tropicana Hotel, that I believe is owned by Bally's, the same group that, at least for now, owns a lot of regional sports networks. It's all very silly. So this, I believe, the entire purpose of this is this site would require less in public funding to get done than the other site that they had agreed to like 2 weeks ago would. And they are trying to squeeze this in quickly because they need to start building this thing if they want to play in Las Vegas anytime soon in a major league stadium. Basically, as they continue to burn bridges in Oakland, they're running the risk of the Coliseum not letting them play there, and then they're going to have to go play in a AAA ballpark, which has some pretty obvious downsides in terms of tickets and convincing people that you're worth coming to see, yada, yada, yada.
And not just that, then it'll make people be like, oh, they're like a AAA team on the field too. Okay.
Yeah, there are jokes to be made. So that's where the A's are, and I would say this does not make me more confident they're moving to Vegas. It makes me very confident they're going to continue trying and that it might not work.
It makes me more confident that Oakland is not entertaining further conversations with them and that they're like, okay, we're going to have to make this Vegas thing work, aren't we? I don't know. It sounds like we're going to have more updates at some point. This is by no means like wow, we're settled. So stay tuned. Okay, should we play a game?
Let's play a game. I want to talk about Mookie Betts by talking about people other than Mookie Betts. So Mookie Betts, as you may have heard, MVP level right fielder, one of the top 5 players in the game for the past half decade. He started playing some shortstop for the Dodgers when every other shortstop on their roster, their AAA roster, everyone was hurt. Just all of them hurt. And they were like, Mookie Betts, you played shortstop when you were a prospect a decade ago and are like a supremely gifted athlete in everything you've ever tried. You want to give it a shot? And he said yes. So he played some shortstop while Miguel Rojas was on the IL. And here's the thing. Miguel Rojas came back the other day, but Dave Roberts, the manager of the Dodgers, said Mookie Betts is still going to play some shortstop because the Dodgers have a lot of good outfielders and arguably no actually good shortstops. So they're like, yeah, Mookie Betts is probably the best shortstop on the team too. And so he's continued to play shortstop. He's played 7 games there so far. I believe 5 of them starts, and it sounds like he's going to get maybe 1 start a week there for the rest of the season. So that led me to just want to ponder how incredible it is that a player as good as Mookie Betts could just step in at shortstop some. So I have 10 players.
Okay.
All of these very, very good players from the last few decades of baseball. And I'm going to ask you whether this player ever played shortstop in the majors. I will say none of these are gimmicks in the like, he played 1 inning and that was it. All of these players either played 10 games at shortstop or nothing at all. So let's begin. All you have to do is say yes or no.
Okay. I feel like, please tell the people what I said beforehand.
That you were not going to be good at this.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be good at this. And then I'm going to be embarrassed because you were so good at the tungsten armored oil game. Let's go.
Okay, first one. Recent Hall of Fame electee, Scott Rowland. Incredible third base defender. Kind of what he's known for.
Yes.
He never did.
Really?
He never played an inning at any position other than third base, actually. Which I remember coming up in his Hall of Fame thing.
Okay.
Chipper Jones, Atlanta Braves legend.
No.
Yes, he played shortstop when he first got to the big leagues, and then pretty quickly they were like, yeah, no, he's going to play third. And then pretty quickly after that, they were like, yeah, no, he's going to play left field. So,
told you I was going to be bad at this. All right. Miguel
Cabrera.
Oh. I'm going to say yes because it would be so surprising.
He's a no, but he did play shortstop in the minors, and there is a baseball card from when he's a prospect that says he's a shortstop, which is amusing.
That must have been what I was thinking of.
Of course. Chase Utley.
Okay, see, this one I should know. I watched all of Chase Utley's career, and yet I do not know. Well, he not when Jimmy Rollins was playing, but maybe later is yes.
He's a no.
Okay.
So
see, I'm definitely overthinking what I think you're trying to make me think.
Yeah, I'm just throwing out names here because Chase Utley was a second baseman and shortstop, kind of the closest thing, but he was more of a hands guy and a steadiness guy than a range guy, and I think his arm also was viewed as not really shortstop worthy, so he never actually played there. I think you got this one. Manny Machado.
Why'd you do that? Yes, he did.
Yes, he did. So he played shortstop, kind of not in the same situation as Mookie Betts, but in the Orioles were down some shortstops, and he was a god-level defender at third base. They were like, he could probably do shortstop, and he did fine. Not as well as he did at third base. Similarly, Nolan Arenado.
No.
He has never played shortstop.
Okay.
Yeah,
has he ever played, and has he made a start anywhere other than third ever?
I don't believe so. I didn't specifically look this up, but I don't think he has.
I don't think he has either. Okay.
Yeah, everyone knows what a good thing they've got there. They're not touching it. Julio Franco. Do you remember Julio Franco? Played till he was like 43.
I cannot say that I do. But did he play shortstop?
Well, you have to guess that one first.
I'm gonna guess that he did.
He did play shortstop early in his career. This one is funny because by the end, Julio Franco was like, honestly, he looked a little bit like Yandy Diaz. He was like a muscle-bound, macho, just incredible physical body athlete who played, like I said, till he was ancient with the Braves. But when he came up, he was both fast and kind of powerful and like wiry strong, and he started as a shortstop. But if you were born like I was in 1990 and only saw the last few years of Julio Franco, that is one of the most surprising things that you could possibly imagine. Jim Thome.
Oh. No,
he did not. That would have been absurd. But Jim Thome, most famous as a designated hitter, he was drafted as a shortstop, and he did try shortstop in the Gulf League when he was a prospect, and he made 15 errors very quickly, and they were like, no, sir, you are not a shortstop.
I had a life-size Jim Thome poster on my wall when I was growing up. I was not as fond of that. I first had a life-size Pat Burrell poster. That one played a bigger role in my life. Then later I replaced it with Jim Thome, and I was like, you know what? I miss Pat. I miss Pat the Bat.
Those are some particularly large players to have life-size posters of.
I think that's what it was, like a giveaway that was like a measure it was like a how tall are you compared to these guys posters.
Yeah, you couldn't do like Jimmy Rollins because it's like, oh yeah, I'm as tall as him. That's
right. Fine. Maybe you are.
Two more.
Okay.
Craig Biggio, who kind of famous for playing more than one position.
Yes.
He did not. He never played shortstop. He played a lot. He played a lot of positions. He played catcher and center field and second base in the majors, but he never played shortstop.
Okay.
I wonder if he pitched. Because then he'd really have all of them except
just
for
like straight up the middle. Yeah.
Except for shortstop. Last one, Gary Sheffield.
Yes.
Yeah. This is a weird one in that he's an all-time terrible defender in like the corner outfield. His defensive stats are probably what's keeping him out of the Hall of Fame. And he came up as a shortstop and made it all the way to the majors as a shortstop with, I believe, the Brewers and a little bit with the Padres. And then everyone said, no, this cannot go on. And he eventually found himself in left or right field and was still very bad at defense there, even though he was an incredible hitter. So Mookie Betts, great shortstop.
I don't think we need to know how I did. We're finding out how I did, aren't we? 5 out of 10.
500.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Better than. I'm glad I set expectations low. I hope this has satiated your need to talk about Mookie Betts playing shortstop. Peek behind the curtains here. For whatever reason, I don't find it that interesting. That's like not a thing I should cop to because it is objectively interesting. I just have so little to say about it. I'm just like, yeah, he's a great player. And Zach has been wanting to talk about it. So he forced me to talk about it by playing this baseball game. And we are going to take a quick break. And then when we come back, we're going to talk more about the AL East. Okay. We have to talk about the AL East, not just because you and I both live in New York, but because everyone around baseball has started to notice that they are the best division in baseball by such a notable margin. Not currently, so not at the exact moment that we are recording, but potentially by the time you are listening to this podcast, because it has been going back and forth. Every single team in the AL East, including the last place team, has on several recent occasions been better than the best team in the AL Central, which has been the Minnesota Twins for that entire time. Other stats that speak to how really incredibly good the AL East is, that currently the division as a whole has a 608 winning percentage, which would put the entire AL East, if they were one team, on pace for a 98 win season. This has something to do with the new schedule, which we can get into, but is not entirely a result of that, because last year the AL East was a 93 win pace against non-division teams. So basically, the new balanced schedule, which has them playing fewer games against one another, and the thing about games they play against one another is, by definition, one of them must lose. Now that there are fewer of those games, we are finding out just how much better relative to the rest of baseball they are. So if anything, the unbalanced schedule was giving us a skewed perception that did not do justice to how good the AL East is. And both of us saw AL East teams play this past week.
We did. I went to Baltimore, and then I saw the Orioles take 2 or 3 from the Pirates, and then I also saw the Blue Jays play the Phillies. You saw the Rays-Yankees series, which at the time it started, at least, was first place versus last place. A real David versus Goliath story where, the Yankees with their slingshot tried to take out the looming terror that is the Tampa Bay Rays.
And they took 2 of 4. They split the series, and they played 7 games against one another in the span of like 10 days. And 6 of those 7 games were decided by 1 run, which, because it is conveniently the first and last place team in the AL East, gives you a sense of how closely, you can't determine that much from any one series, but it speaks to and is nicely indicative of and highlights how tightly knitted together all the teams are at the very top end of the baseball team playing ability. I came away from watching that series thinking, I hate the new balance schedule because I wish that they were playing each other a ton more times, because these games are so good. I understand that then we wouldn't be having this conversation about how great the AL East is, because again, one of them would have to lose every game that they play. But it is really entertaining to see them play one another when they know so much is at stake. They know that winning the division is going to be so difficult given how good everybody else in the division is. And also just both teams are really, really, really good.
Yes, I think the Yankees, in a weird way, I don't think anyone would go into a Yankees series saying, oh yeah, the Yankees taking 2 of 4 from the Rays is a huge success. But I think it kind of was a huge success, because this was a team that was sort of fumbling around for an identity. And I don't know that they found an identity, and they certainly haven't solved all the injury issues plaguing them, but they played with the Rays, and they kind of got back on an even keel, I'd say. And they certainly came out really well against the Blue Jays on Monday. They look like they have stabilized what was kind of a panic situation for a little bit there. And it just sets up an incredible, it's not even necessarily the Rays and Yankees. We're going to talk later about which teams we think will end up in the race for the top of this, but it just sets up an incredible series of games the rest of the year between I think at least 4 teams that are legitimately great, and maybe one that is great in half of a way. But it's going to be a very interesting summer in the AL East. So I want to move real quick and talk about the other teams.
Okay.
So in Baltimore, the Orioles last year, very exciting. Young kids, Adley Rutschman came up and they showed competence for the first time in like 5 years. Then now this year, they are just good. They are, I think, second in the division at this moment. And when I got there to see them play the Pirates this weekend, they were tied for the second best record in baseball with the Braves, which is just extremely not where the Orioles have been recently. And there are really no players on this team who have any idea what it's like to be there. And it's fascinating watching them learn. I don't even think they are learning what it's like to be a great team. They're just like, hey, we're good. We're here. They're just, happy to be going on this ride. And several of them happen to be incredibly good prospects who are turning into good major leaguers. So when I was there, they debuted the Splash Zone, which is a fan section devoted to mimicking the sprinkler celebration that they do when they get an extra base hit. You previously heard me bandwagon this like a month ago. So the premise is, you sit in this section, and whenever the Orioles get an extra base hit or a home run, a man in a costume sprays you with water. So that's the whole deal.
I have to say, I saw the notice, the sort of press release about this section, sent it to you. You were delighted. I knew you were going. I found out you were going to be sitting in that section. I said, I'm looking forward to reading this story. At no point until I actually read your story did I realize that it was going to be a man spraying. I don't know what I thought it was. I thought it was like some kind of built-in water park situation. I did not realize that it would just... What costume was he wearing? I didn't ask you that.
He was wearing like a almost like half lifeguard with like a pink flamingo around it. Someone on Twitter told me that this is a reference to a movie that was filmed in Baltimore or something.
What movie?
I don't remember. John Waters, is that a person? That's a director, I think. This is not my forte. But the pink flamingo is apparently a Baltimore reference in some form or fashion. His name is Mr. Splash, the character.
Okay.
And he has, like a squirt gun thing.
Is he wearing a plush head, like a mascot?
No, it's not a mascot. It's not a mascot deal. It's a man in costume. But so club officials said this is obviously... They did not have a lot of time to put together a whole thing here. This came up like 3 weeks ago where they were like, all right, we'll do it. The players kind of wanted this. And so they're like, sure, we'll do it. But team officials did say that they are considering ways to make this a fuller experience, like a more robust section. So I would not be surprised.
Oh my gosh, sorry. Producer John just slacked us a photo. This is just a man wearing a snorkel and a flamingo floaty with a hose, like a garden hose.
Oh, yeah.
That he's just pointing at the fans. This is, if I didn't know this was team sanctioned, I would not think that this was team sanctioned. All right. That's strange. Do you think it's the same man every game? Do you think he already worked for the team? Did they hire someone for this?
No, I think he definitely already worked for the team. They've only had 3, 4, or 4 games with it, so I don't think we know if it's the same guy every time yet. But I'm interested to see what else they do with this, because I think they are going to expand the experience in some way.
Who are you, sir? Are you listening to this podcast?
His name is Mr. Splash.
Oh, well, that should be easy to track down.
He apparently can't swim based on the number of floaties he has.
Okay, we're supposed to be talking about the AL East, but I don't care. I just want to know more about Mr. Splash. Was that what you said? I wasn't paying attention to you.
That's his name, Mr.
You
Splash.
Talking. I was just looking at the photos. That's so strange. They couldn't have installed some sort of sprinklers below the seats that would be like when.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They just came up with this a couple weeks ago, so they couldn't have done that. They could have
done it during the All-Star break. They didn't. No one insisted that there were. No one was like, "Why are we not getting wet in the outfield in Baltimore. There wasn't like an insistence that they leave the game wet.
I think it's because they wanted to capitalize on this. So the players came up with the fans should sprinkle too. I don't know if that's a verb that you can use in that, but
I didn't like it.
The fans should be involved in our sprinkler celebration. And I think there's at least some rational concern that like the Orioles might not be amazing after the All-Star break. So while there is a huge surge of intensity and a really good team right now, might as well go ahead and capitalize. And they sold a lot of tickets to this very quickly. So
okay, this is good. This brings us, we can use this as an entree point back into the AL East conversation, because they should have some faith in the team, should have some faith in them, the team, that they will still be good in time for them to have spent a little bit more time thinking about
they did not say anything about this being a matter of urgency because the team isn't good. I think they have a lot of confidence that the team is going to be good, but why not capitalize immediately? And so they did.
I'm concerned that they don't have the confidence, because that is what happened last year at the trade deadline with the Orioles. So I hope that the Orioles front office looks at the Orioles performing well and has a different reaction to the Orioles performing well last year, which is to say, this seems sustainable and something we should double down on and perhaps even invest some money into, thus giving us all the AL East race we deserve. We could go through each team, but like we're gonna, we'll wait for them each to have their own kind of like moment and give them their due. What I want to talk about before we get to our predictions is, do you think this is a problem specifically relative to the AL Central? So because of the expanded postseason, there are 3 wildcard teams and 6 teams from every league get in, the 3 division winners, and then 3 other teams. Provided that the last place AL East team is not, by the end of the season, still better than the first place AL Central team, all the quote unquote deserving teams will get in. So as long as the winner of the AL Central is better than at least one team in the AL East, we can stick to this system. 3 division winners, the next 3 best records. And even if it's 4 teams from the AL East who get in, the top 6 teams in the American League will all be in. If for some reason the AL East is all better, including the last place team, than the AL Central division winner, a team with a better record will not make the postseason, the last place team in the AL East, than a team with the worst record, the first place team in the AL Central. Even if that doesn't happen, and we go back to that first scenario, you could still say that the last place team in the AL Central, if this kind of clustering continues, is better than any team in the AL Central, because even in a balanced schedule, they had to play a much tougher slate of opponents. And so you could say they're probably better. So I just do you think, should we break up the AL East? Like, is this a problem? Or maybe is the AL Central's lack of competitiveness a problem?
I think there's obviously an imbalance. The thing is, this is not new. This has been true for a long time. The Cardinals made the playoffs as an 83-win team, I believe, in 2012, and then won the World Series. It's just, this is how the playoff system works. You can dislike the way that it, sets up divisions and leagues to kind of focus on one another, and it focuses on them less now than it used to. So do I think it's a problem? No. Do I think it will cause lots of consternation if this gets close to true at the end of the season? Sure. Obviously the other major professional sports in America set it up in more of a just each league down the middle, you get the top 8 teams in, or top 7 teams, whatever. I see the argument for that, but baseball is a very large sample size sport. We can probably live with the fact that every once in a while we're going to have just a wackadoodle season where the AL East has crazy numbers of great teams and another division is totally down. But whether it's a problem or not, I think MLB is going to change it in the next few years. When expansion happens, they're going to break it into smaller divisions. And, would I be opposed if they took some of the never ever spend, never ever be good AL Central teams and spread them out a little bit so it's not a constant pit of misery? Sure, I'd be fine with that. I don't think the AL East is the problem. I think the AL Central is the problem, for the record.
That's definitely, yes, that is true. The problem is it too easy to win the AL Central, especially relative to the AL East? And I'm going to come down in exactly the same position, unfortunately. That's kind of interesting podcasting, and say, I agree, it is almost certainly going to get changed at some point. And until then, we should enjoy it as a long-standing historical quirk of Major League Baseball. People love the AL. I was going to say people love the AL East. No, they don't. They find it self-important, bloviating, and biased, just like this podcast. All right, should we do predictions?
Let's do a prediction. Yeah. The question I wanted to know is, so obviously the Tampa Bay Rays have been an absolute juggernaut for the whole time of the season so far. But okay, starting today, Tuesday, May 16th, from now until the end of the season, which AL East team will have the best winning percentage from here on out?
And do I have to go first? Or am I the only one going? Do you have an answer?
No, I was going to answer too. I was going to answer.
I want you to go first.
Okay, I am going to say that I think... So it's between two for me.
Can I guess the two?
Yeah, sure.
I think you're going to say it's between the Rays and the Yankees.
I was going to say between the Blue Jays and the Yankees.
Wow, no faith in the Rays.
No, it's not no faith in the Rays. I think the Rays are very good. I think the Rays could have the third best winning percentage and still win the division because of the cushion they built up. But
what is
also,
the cushion that they built up?
All of their pitchers are hurt.
All of their pitchers are hurt.
So that's worrisome to me. Not in a they're doing something wrong way, just in that's going to be hard to keep winning at this clip way. So it's not a lack of faith in the Rays. It's a acknowledgement of the difficulties the Rays are going to have to overcome to continue playing at a high level. I think they will do that. I still would pick them to win the division. But I'm going to take the Yankees to have the best record the rest of the way, because they're playing pretty well with almost like their core sliced in half. Like Aaron Judge missed time. Harrison Bader's played like 6 games and has been amazing in all of them. Anthony Rizzo is really the only guy who has been consistently playing both on the field and well. So, and some of the pitchers. But I think they're going to get enough back that they will end up playing maybe at a slightly higher clip than the Rays, but not actually catch them to win the division.
I think it's a very good answer because I am tempted to give the same, but I will not for intrigue's sake. I believe that the Yankees will finish, they're not going to finish, they're currently in second to last place because just like they and the Red Sox, they've been going back and forth. So yes, I think you're right that having just seen them play the Rays, I thought, this Yankees team's looking more like the way that we thought the Yankees team would look. I think they're going to be much better than they have been. I think they will certainly end up in the postseason. I am going to, for intrigue's sake, stick by my earlier enthusiasm, and also I enjoy having this as a rooting interest, and say it's going to be the Rays. They're going to go wire to wire. Best team in baseball. Yes, I am quite concerned about their pitching, as are they. But there's a trade deadline. That's what the trade deadline is for. It's for them. The trade deadline is for the Rays to pick up some starter you've never heard of with like 3 more years of team control and turn him into Drew Rasmussen, just like they did with Drew Rasmussen. And I look forward to them doing just that and remaining atop the division. I just think their offense, their ability to find pitching in conjunction with the offense that they have, that is not this sort of like Raysian piecing it together. I feel good about the Rays this year. Cool. We'll see how that goes. All right. Let's talk about a team on the other side of the country that's going to be on this side of the country, and I will see them when they're here. I am going to bandwagon specifically of the Arizona Diamondbacks. Just one guy, their pitcher, Zac Gallen. Zac Gallen is the best pitcher in baseball right now, at least by Fangraphs WAR. He was one of the best pitchers in baseball last year. finished with an ERA under 3 and an ERA plus last year of 158. So he was more than 50% better than league average and has never even made an all-star team. And that is something that Zac Gallen himself takes objection to. He was on the Foul Territory podcast recently and shared the fact that he keeps a screenshot of the Cy Young voting from last year. I did not know that the players had access to that, which shows him everyone who did and did not vote for him. And he carries it around with him in his phone photo album as like a kind of chip on your shoulder, bulletin material, I'll show them type thing. And I don't know that I like that because that feels kind of targeting some people perhaps unnecessarily.
I'm glad I don't have a vote.
There's a lot of good pitchers in baseball, but I think I like that like Zac Gallen is kind of bandwagoning Zac Gallen as like, hey, you guys should look at this pitcher. He was really good last year. And he's doing that by being even better thus far this year. He's, I don't know, just really good. Also on that podcast, he talked about he was a Cardinals fan growing up. We'll talk about why that's weird in a second. And he was with the Cardinals briefly, and then they traded him. And he said, quote, probably didn't fit into the Cardinal way, which is, I just like that. I enjoy someone who will say that publicly on a podcast. He is striking out nearly a third of batters. He's walking fewer than 4% of batters he's facing, which is phenomenal. And perhaps most importantly, he has the same cell phone area code as me. He is from South Jersey, just like me. Unlike me, he takes pride in this fact. I pretend I'm from Philadelphia. He does not. He reps South Jersey, talks about how close it is to the Jersey Shore. And he prefers pork roll to scrapple, as we've discussed on Twitter in the past, which is an incorrect take, but at least he has an opinion on that, which is important. And he's going to come back. He's going to pitch against the Philadelphia Phillies, his hometown team, not the team he grew up rooting for. Apparently that was the Cardinals. Next week, I'm going to go see him. I'm very excited about this. I think he wears rec specs. I don't know. He's a very like a modern pitcher, but not in like a Rays sense. Sorry, Rays. Now I'm using you pejoratively, but like, you know what I mean? Like he's like a media savvy online cool dude. And also he's really good and really dominant. And he had excellent pizza recommendations when I saw him in Arizona. And I didn't want to wait in line for the really popular pizza place in Arizona.
Yes, he deep dives his pizza. He deep dives pitching stuff. He's got a very savvy approach to how he pitches. And I feel very confident in predicting he will make the All-Star team this year. He was also my Cy Young prediction, so thank you.
I'm
boost. I'm feeling good about that.
I had to swoop in and bandwagon this before you had a chance to, because I know you are equally enamored with Zac Gallen as a pitcher. I'm just enamored with him from a hometown perspective.
Yes, the only thing Zac Gallen does wrong is the spelling of Zach. You know, he's got the ZAC, which is just it's a choice, not on his part, I guess. It's
alphabetic economy, and just like his pitching economy, he has pitched pretty deep into games. He's gone at least 7 innings 4 times so far in 9 starts. We love that in this day and age. I kind of feel like, not to this extreme, but I kind of feel like he has the potential to kind of be like this year's Sandy Alcantara, which is like not on the most prominent team. And at the end of the year, we look up and we're like, oh, wow, actually the Cy Young voting is quite easy. Someone was both very good and threw a lot of innings.
They were, and very easily could have stayed on the same team with the Marlins.
Yes.
I think they came over in the same trade.
They came over in the same
trade. From the
trade.
Cardinals to the Marlins. And then the Marlins traded Zac Gallen for Jazz Chisholm, which, both of those are pretty good players. But I would say that Gallen is currently winning that challenge trade.
We'll probably talk about him again next week, because that's what I've been doing with my week. Next week, early part of next week it'll be right after the podcast. That's not interesting, but we'll talk about him soon, whenever it is that I get to see him, talk to him, write about him. So that's what I'll be doing, is I'm going to Philly. Before that, I'm just going to be in New York, because the Mets are finally back. I felt like the Mets were playing a surprising amount of their games on the road because I hadn't gotten a chance to see them in New York much. And then they mentioned it on the broadcast recently. They have, in fact, been playing a real outsized portion of their games on the road. They're finally back. They are not looking good.
It's not been great.
It's not been great. So I'm going to be there to see if they can right the ship. Can they? They're facing the Rays to start. So that's
probably not
promising. But Justin Verlander pitching tonight. So, the Mets, people in baseball love to be like, is this one starter going to put them on a track to turn the ship around, those mixing your transportation metaphors, and get everything going in the right direction? It's like, no, he's going to have one game. He's going to pitch one game. And they might win that game, but then they'll go right back to being not so great when whoever is not Justin Verlander makes a start.
Yeah, the thing I'm watching this week, also about getting on the right track, turning the ship around, whatever. Juan Soto and Nolan Arenado, I would say, were various levels of dormant for April, and they have woken up, I think. And so, especially Soto, definitely awake, definitely hitting like Soto again, and Arenado just went ballistic on the Boston Red Sox on Sunday. So I think he's back on track, and that could be very important. Probably more important than benching Wilson Contreras for a little bit for the Cardinals. So that's what I will be paying attention to.
I'm glad Juan Soto was. I felt like we were talking a lot about is this the end of Juan Soto? And it's not. So I'm glad that he's put an end to those conversations. If you have made it this far, you should subscribe. Well, first of all, if you've made it this far, you should follow us on Twitter. I'm at Hannah R. Kaiser. He is at Z Kreiser. And then you should, after you follow us on Twitter, subscribe to the podcast and the YouTube channel. Leave us a 5-star review. Tell a friend. And we will be back next week with another episode of The Bandwagon.